Global headlines scream of division. Nations against nations, citizens against leaders, families against themselves. What if this pervasive fracturing isn't new, but an ancient echo, a warning whispered across millennia? Against a backdrop of dusty Judean roads, amidst the fervent debates of his day, Jesus of Nazareth uttered a principle that transcends time and culture. He declared, with profound clarity, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand." These are not merely observations of a wise teacher. They are a universal truth, a foundational law governing the very cohesion of society, echoing through history as a timeless pronouncement. What few realize is the depth and breadth of this warning, a prophetic insight into the very fabric of human organization. This profound statement was not spoken in isolation. It came during a tense confrontation, as religious leaders, the Pharisees, sought to undermine his authority. They accused Jesus of casting out demons by the power of Beelzebul, the prince of demons, an attempt to discredit his divine power. But Jesus, with unparalleled wisdom, turned their accusation against them. If Satan drives out Satan, he is divided against himself. He reasoned, how then can his kingdom stand? It was a logical trap, exposing the absurdity of their premise. Yet beneath the immediate rebuttal lay a deeper, universal principle. Internal cohesion is paramount. Whether a kingdom of light or darkness, good or evil, any entity fractured from within is inherently unstable, destined for ruin. But Jesus' warning extends far beyond political kingdoms or legal arguments. What if the internal divisions we witness today, the bitter ideological rifts and societal fractures, are not merely political or social phenomena? What if they are manifestations of a deeper, unseen conflict? The adversary's ancient strategy has always been divide and conquer. He seeks to splinter individuals, sever families, fragment communities, and ultimately tear apart nations. This timeless warning, therefore, speaks to the very spiritual health of any society. A kingdom, whether a nation, a church, or even a single heart, cannot stand when its internal foundations are compromised by spiritual disunity and strife. The earliest chapters of the Bible do not merely chronicle the beginnings of humanity. They lay bare the very first seeds of disunion, exposing the destructive power of division at its most intimate level. Within a family, in the nascent days of existence, two brothers, Cain and Abel, stood before their Creator. Abel offered the firstborn of his flock, a sacrifice deemed acceptable. Cain brought an offering from the ground, a gift God did not favor. What followed was not quiet disappointment, but a raging fire of envy and anger that consumed Cain's heart. He rose against his brother Abel in the field, taking his life. Here, in the genesis of human interaction, we find the primal fracture. Division, born of pride and jealousy, culminating in an act of fratricide that forever marked the earth. The consequences were immediate and profound. A shattered family, a man cursed to wander, and the land itself crying out against the spilled blood. This wasn't merely a dispute. It was the first tragic testament to a house divided. Centuries later, humanity, unified by a single language and a singular, audacious ambition, gathered on the plain of Shinar. Their goal was monumental, to build a city and a tower whose top would reach into the heavens, a monument not to God, but to their own collective power and fame. This was a unity of human hubris, an attempt to bypass divine authority and establish a kingdom entirely self-reliant. But such a unity, born of pride, was inherently flawed. God, observing their concentrated defiance, intervened. He did not destroy them. Instead, he confused their language, scattering them across the face of the earth. This divine act of division broke their collective will and dispersed them, giving rise to the myriad languages, cultures, and nations we see today. The Tower of Babel stands as an epic, cautionary tale, a powerful demonstration of how human ambition, when unchecked and directed away from God, inevitably leads to fragmentation, even by divine decree. It was the birth of national division. Yet not all divisions are destructive. The Bible also reveals moments where separation, handled with wisdom and humility, can preserve peace. Such was the case with Abraham and his nephew, Lot. Their herds had grown too vast for the same grazing lands in Canaan. Conflict began to simmer between their herdsmen, threatening the harmony of their extended family. Abraham, the elder and the patriarch, demonstrated remarkable foresight and generosity. He approached Lot not with demands, but with a peaceful proposal. "Let there be no strife between you and me, or between your herdsmen and mine, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Please separate from me." He offered Lot the first choice of land. Lot chose the fertile Jordan Valley, and Abraham graciously moved to the drier plains of Canaan. This was a division born of necessity, navigated with respect, preventing a destructive conflict. It stands as an exemplary model, revealing that sometimes a mature, selfless separation can be the wisest path to avoiding a house divided. But what of divisions that linger, festering for decades? The story of Jacob and Esau presents a different dimension of familial rift, one rooted in deceit and rivalry from birth. Jacob, through cunning and trickery, stole Esau's birthright and blessing, igniting an animosity so deep that Esau swore to kill him. For 2 decades they lived apart, a chasm of resentment between them. Yet, as Jacob returned to his homeland, filled with fear of his brother's wrath, God orchestrated a moment of profound reconciliation. Jacob approached Esau with humility, bowing 7 times, and Esau, moved by a grace inexplicable by human logic, ran to meet him, embracing him and weeping. This reunion was not merely a cessation of hostilities, it was a restoration of brotherhood. It powerfully demonstrates that even the most entrenched divisions, those scarred by deep betrayal and long-standing animosity, can find healing and reconciliation through humility, forgiveness, and ultimately, God's intervening grace. Yet the story of Jacob's own sons reveals perhaps the deepest familial betrayal, a division born of envy and favoritism that brought prolonged suffering. Joseph, the favored son, stirred jealousy in his brothers with his prophetic dreams and his father's lavish coat. Their envy escalated to a horrific act. They conspired to kill him, ultimately selling him into slavery and deceiving their father into believing he was dead. This act created a profound, painful division within Jacob's family, a wound that festered for years. Joseph endured unimaginable hardship, unjustly imprisoned in Egypt. But what began as the cruelest division, God, in His infinite wisdom, used for a redemptive purpose. Years later, when famine gripped the land, it was Joseph, now a powerful ruler in Egypt, who saved his family and an entire nation. His eventual revelation to his brothers, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good," unveiled a complex truth. Even the most destructive divisions can, in the grand tapestry of God's plan, serve a greater divine purpose, leading to ultimate restoration and preservation. From the raw anger of Cain to the calculated deceit of Joseph's brothers, the earliest narratives of Genesis offer a stark blueprint for human division. We witness how disunity is not merely an external force, but often an insidious poison born from internal human failings, unchecked pride, consuming envy, and relentless self-interest. These accounts are not isolated incidents. They are foundational patterns, recurring motifs woven throughout the fabric of human history. They reveal that the propensity for societies to fracture, for kingdoms to divide, is an ancient, deeply ingrained human problem with profound spiritual roots. These initial stories serve as powerful object lessons, preparing us to recognize these same forces at play in larger, more complex societies. The lessons from these fractured families of Genesis are not confined to the intimate sphere of kinship. They are the foundational principles that scale upwards, from individual hearts to burgeoning tribes, and eventually to entire nation-states. As humanity multiplied and coalesced into larger communities, the inherent challenges of unity only amplified. The same pride, envy, and self-interest that tore families apart would inevitably manifest on a grander scale, threatening the very cohesion of burgeoning kingdoms. And so, the stage is set for the unfolding drama of history, where we will see, with chilling precision, the literal fulfillment of Jesus' warning, how even mighty kingdoms divided against themselves cannot stand. The Golden Age of Israel, a period of unprecedented power and prestige, was forged under the reign of King Solomon. His wisdom was legendary, his temple magnificent, and his kingdom stretched across lands once only dreamed of. Yet even in this era of unparalleled glory, the seeds of division were quietly being sown. Solomon, the wisest king, allowed his heart to be led astray by foreign wives, introducing idolatry into the very heart of God's chosen nation. Furthermore, his grand building projects and lavish lifestyle were financed through increasingly heavy taxation and forced labor, particularly burdensome for the northern tribes. A murmuring discontent began to ripple through the land, a growing resentment against the centralized power in Jerusalem. A looming shadow began to fall over the kingdom, foreshadowing a fracture that would forever alter Israel's destiny. The inevitable clash arrived with Solomon's son Rehoboam, who ascended the throne with a critical decision before him. The people, burdened by his father's policies, gathered in Shechem with a plea: "Lighten the harsh service of your father and his heavy yoke upon us, and we will serve you." It was a moment of profound national consequence, a chance to heal the growing rift. Rehoboam, however, rejected the counsel of the elders who urged compassion. Instead, he listened to his young, inexperienced peers, who advised a path of even greater severity. His infamous retort, "My father made your yoke heavy, I will make it heavier. My father scourged you with whips, I will scourge you with scorpions," sealed the nation's fate. In that single, arrogant declaration, the unified kingdom shattered. 10 northern tribes, rejecting the Davidic line, declared their independence and crowned Jeroboam as their king. What God had brought together under David, human folly had now irrevocably torn apart. Thus, Israel became a divided kingdom, the northern kingdom retaining the name Israel, and the southern kingdom, Judah. The northern kingdom, spanning 10 tribes, immediately embarked on a path of spiritual apostasy. King Jeroboam, fearing that his people would return to Jerusalem for worship, established rival centers of worship at Bethel and Dan, complete with golden calves. This deliberate institutionalization of idolatry set the tone for centuries of spiritual decline. A succession of corrupt and unstable kings followed, often seizing power through violence and intrigue. Prophet after prophet arose, delivering urgent warnings against their idolatry, injustice, and moral decay, but their pleas fell on deaf ears. The internal rot, the spiritual division from God, led inevitably to political instability. After 2 centuries of internal strife and spiritual rebellion, the northern kingdom, a house divided against itself, could no longer stand. It fell to the merciless Assyrian Empire in 722 BC, its people scattered and exiled, vanishing from the stage of history as an independent nation. In contrast, the southern kingdom of Judah, comprising the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, maintained a more stable, albeit turbulent, existence. Centered in Jerusalem, with the temple and the Davidic dynasty, Judah experienced periods of revival under righteous kings who sought to restore true worship. Yet these seasons of faithfulness were often short-lived, interspersed with periods of profound idolatry and internal moral decay, mirroring the very divisions Jesus would later warn against. Prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah continually called for repentance, highlighting the internal strife, social injustice, and spiritual compromise that plagued the nation. For over a century after Israel's fall, Judah endured, but the pattern of rebellion and division from God's commands proved too strong. Despite its more stable lineage, Judah too eventually succumbed. Its internal divisions and spiritual failures weakened it, making it vulnerable to the rising power of Babylon. Jerusalem fell. The temple was destroyed, and its people were carried into exile in 586 BC. Even with a more righteous beginning, a house divided against God's will ultimately could not stand. The prophets, acting as divine sentinels, consistently articulated the dangers of this internal fragmentation, both spiritual and social. Isaiah decried the corruption that permeated society, declaring, "Your rulers are rebels, companions of thieves. They all love bribes and chase after gifts. They do not defend the cause of the fatherless. The widow's case does not come before them." Jeremiah warned of the deep spiritual schism. "My people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and dug out cisterns for themselves, cracked cisterns that can hold no water." Amos thundered against the social injustice that created deep divisions between rich and poor, asserting that God would not tolerate a kingdom torn apart by oppression. Their unified message was clear: a nation divided by injustice, by spiritual apostasy, and by internal factionalism cannot prosper. It will, by divine decree, invite judgment and ultimately ruin. These ancient warnings, delivered with urgent prophetic fire, echo with chilling accuracy into the political chaos of our own time. The consequences of Israel's division were catastrophic and far-reaching. What had once been a unified, powerful nation, chosen by God to be a light to the world, was reduced to two smaller, often warring kingdoms. This fragmentation led directly to the loss of their sovereignty, their identity, and ultimately, their homeland. For centuries, the people of God endured foreign domination, scattered and oppressed, longing for a return to the unified kingdom that had been lost through internal strife and spiritual compromise. The historical outcome of this division serves as a stark, undeniable testament to Jesus' warning: "A kingdom divided against itself will indeed fall." It is a powerful, enduring lesson etched into the very fabric of biblical history. The story of Israel's divided kingdom is not merely a historical account. It is a profound parable for all time. From its fragmentation, universal lessons emerge with striking clarity. It reveals the inherent fragility of unity when not built upon a solid spiritual foundation. It underscores the profound dangers of internal strife, spiritual compromise, and unrighteous leadership, demonstrating how these forces can unravel even a divinely ordained nation. These lessons, drawn from ancient texts and the fall of God's own people, hold enduring relevance for any society, any community, and indeed any kingdom that seeks to stand. The patterns of fragmentation we witness today are not new. They are echoes of an ancient truth, preparing us to look at even larger empires and their internal struggles through this same prophetic lens. Yet, the story of division extends far beyond Israel's borders, for its truth was inscribed in the very fabric of prophetic history long before the kingdoms of Judah and Israel ever splintered. A young Hebrew prisoner, Daniel, living in Babylon during its golden age, was granted visions that unveiled the destinies of empires yet to rise. King Nebuchadnezzar, ruler of the mightiest kingdom of his time, was haunted by a dream of a colossal statue. Its head was of gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet a strange mixture of iron and clay. No wise man in Babylon could interpret the king's forgotten dream until Daniel, empowered by God, stood before him. With divine authority, Daniel revealed the dream's exact details and its terrifying meaning. "You, O king, are the head of gold, but after you another kingdom will rise, then a third and a fourth. This final kingdom, represented by the legs of iron, would be strong, crushing all before it. But then, the prophecy reveals a chilling detail. Its feet would be made of iron mixed with clay, signifying a kingdom that would be divided. It would possess the strength of iron, yet be inherently weak, unable to truly cohere. This vision was a blueprint, a prophetic map foreshadowing the internal divisions that would plague even the most formidable empires. The Roman Empire, whose iron legions once spanned the known world, became the chilling fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy. From its republican origins to its imperial zenith, Rome's immense power was undeniable. Yet, Beneath the veneer of unyielding strength, internal political strife festered like a chronic disease. Civil wars erupted with devastating frequency, assassinations became a common tool of political transition, and corruption gnawed at the very foundations of governance. The vast empire eventually cleaved itself into eastern and western halves, a stark manifestation of internal division. This split, more than any external barbarian horde, marked the beginning of the end. The Western Roman Empire, weakened by its own internal contradictions and divisions, ultimately crumbled. Not by a single decisive external blow, but by the slow, inexorable decay of a kingdom divided against itself. Centuries later, the profound truth of Jesus' warning manifested in a different, yet equally devastating form of division, the East-West Schism within Christendom. From the majestic splendor of Constantinople to the ancient authority of Rome, two halves of a spiritual kingdom drifted apart. Theological distinctions, once debated in scholarly halls, hardened into irreconcilable differences. Cultural nuances morphed into chasms of misunderstanding. The mutual excommunications of 1054 were not merely ecclesiastical pronouncements. They were the seismic event that fractured the very soul of Western civilization, creating a lasting schism between the Orthodox and Catholic churches. Two spiritual kingdoms emerged, each claiming the mantle of Christ, yet irrevocably divided. This was not a military conquest, but a profound rupture of faith and identity, demonstrating that even spiritual unity can be shattered by internal strife. The 16th century brought another seismic shift that reshaped the spiritual and political landscape of Europe, the Protestant Reformation. What began as a theological challenge by Martin Luther to the established church quickly ignited a continent-wide inferno of religious and political fragmentation. The rise of Protestantism shattered the monolithic unity of Western Christendom, spawning countless denominations and competing confessions. This spiritual upheaval cascaded into brutal religious wars, such as the 30 Years' War, which ravaged Europe, claiming millions of lives and redrawing national boundaries. The Reformation, while bringing vital renewal, simultaneously created deep, enduring political and ideological divides that echoed Jesus' warning on a truly grand scale. A spiritual kingdom had become profoundly divided, leading to centuries of conflict and distrust. In the 17th century, England, a nation once united under a monarch, found itself convulsed by a profound ideological division. The English Civil War was not a conflict against a foreign invader, but a brutal struggle waged within its own borders. King Charles I, believing in divine right, clashed violently with a parliament increasingly asserting its authority and fueled by Puritan religious fervor. The nation split into royalists and parliamentarians, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor. The war culminated in the execution of the king and the brief, tumultuous establishment of a republic, only to be followed by the restoration of the monarchy. This was a raw, visceral illustration of Jesus' principle. A kingdom divided by fundamental disagreements over power, governance, and faith could not stand without tearing itself apart, even if only temporarily. Perhaps no nation has ever faced the ultimate test of Jesus' warning more directly than the United States of America. In the 19th century, a fundamental divide over the institution of slavery and the balance of states' rights ripped the young nation apart. Abraham Lincoln, peering into the abyss of national disunion, famously invoked Jesus' ancient words, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." He understood with chilling clarity that the nation could not endure half slave and half free. The ensuing American Civil War became the deadliest conflict in the nation's history, pitting countrymen against countrymen in a catastrophic struggle. Though the Union was ultimately preserved, the war left scars that endure to this day, a tragic testament to the enduring relevance and profound cost of a kingdom divided. From the fractured tribes of ancient Israel to the fall of Rome, from the schisms of Christendom to the civil wars that tore nations apart, a recurring pattern emerges. These are not isolated incidents of history, but consistent manifestations of a universal truth. Whether fueled by pride, idolatry, theological disputes, or ideological clashes. Internal division consistently breeds weakness, instability, and vulnerability. The principle remains constant, transcending cultures and eras. A kingdom, be it a family, a nation, or a spiritual community, when divided against itself, cannot endure. It is a lesson etched in the annals of human history, often with the blood of those who failed to heed the warning. But why does this pattern repeat with such terrifying precision? At its core lies an inherent human tendency: tribalism. We are wired for belonging, for forming groups. This instinct, while offering security and identity, also carries a dark side: the inclination to define ourselves by what we are not, to demonize the other group. When fear and distrust take root, differences are exaggerated, and common ground evaporates. This psychological trap makes societies inherently vulnerable to the divided kingdom phenomenon. It is a fertile ground where seeds of discord, once planted, can quickly grow into impenetrable ideological walls, turning fellow citizens into adversaries. This is how a subtle comfort in belonging can morph into a destructive force of separation. Yet, this tribalism, this human propensity for division, is not merely a psychological or political phenomenon. Its deepest roots are spiritual. The adversary of our souls, described in Scripture as a sower of discord, thrives on disunity. His constant work is to sow hatred, animosity, and suspicion within individuals, families, and nations. These spiritual battles manifest in the political and social arenas, often unseen by those who only perceive surface-level conflicts. For those seeking to understand the chaos of our world, a deeper discernment is required. A recognition that behind the headlines and political rhetoric, a spiritual war is being waged, fueled by forces seeking to fracture and dismantle every form of unity. And now we stand at a crossroads. The historical echoes of divided kingdoms are no longer distant whispers. They are the resounding shouts of our present moment. Look around, and you will see the rapid, impactful visuals of modern polarization. Protests, political debates, online arguments, mirroring the ancient patterns. What if everything you're seeing today was predicted centuries ago? Across continents, the headlines scream a shared narrative. Nations once seemingly stable now wrestle with unprecedented internal turmoil. From the United States, grappling with a stark partisan divide, to the fracturing politics of European democracies, or the volatile ideological chasms in developing nations, the signs are unmistakable. Populist movements surge, driven by fervent ideological extremes, while the very idea of bipartisan cooperation appears a relic of a bygone era. What we are witnessing is not isolated incidents, but a global pattern, an accelerating fragmentation of the body politic. The terrifying truth is this: the principle of a kingdom divided against itself is manifesting everywhere, right now, on a macro scale that defies easy explanation. Yet this global divide is not merely a political phenomenon. It is profoundly amplified by the very tools we created to connect. Our digital interfaces, designed for communication, have become architects of isolation. Algorithms, unseen and relentless, craft personalized filter bubbles and echo chambers, ensuring we hear only voices that reinforce our existing beliefs. Misinformation and disinformation spread like wildfire, unchecked by shared truth, while the anonymity of the online world fosters the dehumanization of the other. What few realize is that these digital platforms, far from fostering understanding, are secretly tearing society apart, creating a fractured reality where common ground is systematically eroded. Your phone, once a symbol of connection, now plays a hidden, insidious role in accelerating this global schism. Beyond politics and pixels, deep-seated cultural wars rage, transforming fundamental values and identity into battlegrounds. Debates over social norms, historical narratives, and individual freedoms have become deeply entrenched conflicts, often devoid of nuance or mercy. The phenomenon of cancel culture, where dissent can lead to professional and social ostracization, further polarizes, creating an environment where finding common ground is not just difficult, but actively discouraged. This is no accident. The constant escalation of these cultural battles serves as a precise, calculated attack on unity itself, ensuring societies remain locked in an emotional, spiritual, and ideological stalemate, unable to coalesce around shared principles. Beneath the surface of political and cultural divides, economic disparities continue to fester, fueling resentment and deepening the chasm. The widening gap between the wealthy and the working class, the perception of unfairness in opportunity, and the struggle for basic economic security translate directly into political and social unrest. When segments of a population feel unseen, unheard, and systematically disadvantaged, their grievances become fertile ground for division. These economic pressures act as a powerful accelerant, exacerbating existing fault lines and pushing societies closer to the brink. The shocking truth is that economic inequality is not merely a policy challenge. It is tearing the very fabric of our society apart, making a, quote, kingdom divided a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we consider these converging forces, global political rifts, the fragmenting power of social media, entrenched cultural wars, and festering economic disparities, a singular, pervasive feeling emerges. It is the chilling sense that societies are actively pulling apart, losing their common identity, their shared purpose, and their capacity for collective action. There is a palpable fear for the future, a deep anxiety about the stability of nations. This is not mere rhetoric. It is the direct echo of Jesus' ancient warning resonating with terrifying clarity in our current global climate. We are, undeniably, living the prophecy. Our world is becoming a kingdom divided against itself, and the profound implications of this reality demand our urgent spiritual attention. After tracing the ancient fault lines of disunity through history, from the first family fracture to the fall of empires, the profound wisdom of Jesus' warning echoes with chilling clarity in our present age. Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. These were not mere words of historical observation, but a timeless principle, a prophetic declaration of an immutable spiritual law. Today, we witness its terrifying precision unfolding across nations and communities. The direct correlation between internal division, whether political, social, or moral, and societal instability is no longer a theory. It is a lived reality. Societies fractured by deep ideological chasms, by an inability to find common ground, are proving that such a state cannot, indeed, stand indefinitely. The very foundations upon which they were built begin to crumble from within. Yet, what few realize is that the roots of this pervasive polarization extend far beyond mere politics or differing opinions. There is a deeper, unseen war being waged. The Bible reveals that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil. These unseen adversaries actively work to stir up hatred, sow discord, and ignite animosity, seeking to divide and conquer not just nations, but the very souls within them. The political arguments that rage, the cultural battles that erupt, are often but surface manifestations of a profound spiritual conflict. For believers, recognizing this truth is paramount. It demands spiritual discernment to see beyond the headlines and understand the true enemy, shifting our perspective from human opposition to spiritual warfare. This is not merely a call to political engagement, but a spiritual one, a battle for the soul of society itself. One of the most insidious dangers born from this spiritual warfare and unchecked polarization is the rapid demonization of the opposition. When differing views become synonymous with evil, when those who disagree are labeled as irrational or morally corrupt, a dangerous threshold is crossed. Empathy, the very essence of human connection, erodes. Common humanity is discarded. This destructive practice escalates conflict, transforming debate into war and making any genuine reconciliation seem utterly impossible. This is not simply a political tactic. It is a spiritual poison, a key indicator that a divided kingdom is in decline, with profound implications for the moral and spiritual health of a society. As demonization takes hold, another catastrophic consequence unfolds: the erosion of common ground and meaningful dialogue. Societies find themselves in a chilling new reality where civil discourse becomes impossible, where shared facts are replaced by partisan narratives, and objective truth itself seems to vanish. People are no longer talking trenches each other, but past each other, trapped in self-reinforcing echo chambers. This breakdown in communication corrodes the very mechanisms of a functioning society, making it impossible to address collective problems or forge shared solutions. It is the ultimate fulfillment of Jesus' warning: a kingdom so divided by its inability to communicate and cooperate that it truly cannot stand. The very fabric of societal cohesion begins to unravel. What is most alarming about our current era is the accelerating pace of this division. The ideological divides that once took decades to deepen now appear to intensify within years, even months. It feels as though society is being pulled apart at an unprecedented speed, hurtling towards a breaking point. This rapid fragmentation is a stark, urgent warning, demanding immediate attention and proactive measures. The stakes could not be higher. For the future of nations, communities, and even the global human family depends on whether we recognize and respond to this existential threat. But even in this alarming acceleration, there is hope, for the same scriptures that warn of division also reveal a powerful path toward unity. After tracing the ancient fault lines of division, from the family feuds of Genesis to the fractured empires of history and the polarized world of today, a crucial question emerges: is there a way back from the brink? What does the blueprint of divine wisdom reveal about true unity? The scriptures offer a profound counter-narrative, a consistent call for cohesion that echoes from Christ's own lips. In his final hours, Jesus prayed not for comfort or escape, but for an unbreakable unity among his followers, that they may be one, just as we are one. This was not a mere suggestion. It was a foundational prayer, a divine aspiration for the very fabric of his church. Later, the Apostle Paul exhorted believers to be like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and purpose. This vision transcends mere agreement. It speaks to a deep, spiritual harmony, a tapestry of diverse peoples woven together in Christ, a testament to God's unifying power in a world constantly pulling itself apart. This is the divine alternative to the broken kingdom. The pathway to this profound unity begins not with policy debates or political alliances, but with a radical, challenging command to love. Jesus himself declared the greatest commandments: to love God with all our being and to love your neighbor as yourself. But what if that neighbor stands on the opposite side of the political chasm? What if they are the very adversary we have been taught to demonize? The Bible's answer is uncompromising: love them still. It is a love that cultivates empathy, seeks understanding, and refuses to reduce another human being to a mere political label. This isn't about condoning harmful ideologies, but about recognizing the inherent dignity in every individual. It challenges us to build bridges of compassion across divides, to listen before we speak, and to pray for those we struggle to comprehend. Only then can the destructive cycle of demonization be broken and the healing truly begin. In a world increasingly fractured, the Church stands as a singular, powerful beacon of reconciliation. It is called to be a third way, a community that transcends the partisan divides and ideological battlegrounds that tear nations apart. The Church's mandate is not to align itself with any single political faction, but to model unity in diversity, to showcase how people from every background, every social standing, and every political persuasion can be bound together by a common faith in Christ. This is its unique power, its undeniable witness. It is the responsibility of believers to speak truth in love, to advocate for justice without succumbing to hatred, and to actively promote healing within their communities and beyond. When the world sees the Church, it should not see another kingdom divided, but a living testament to the possibility of authentic spiritual unity. While the call to unity is grand, its realization begins in the smallest spheres of influence with each of us. You, as an individual, possess immense power to shift the narrative of division in your own world. It starts with choosing personal example, responding with grace where anger expects retaliation, seeking common ground instead of drawing lines in the sand. It means cultivating empathy in your daily interactions, whether in the workplace, at family gatherings, or even in the anonymous realm of online discussions. Instead of dismissing those with differing views, choose dialogue. Listen to understand, not just to reply. This isn't about compromising your convictions, but about upholding the humanity of others, even when you vehemently disagree. The shocking secret to ending political division doesn't lie in a sweeping movement, but in the deliberate, consistent choices of individuals like you. Beyond our individual actions, there lies a profound, often overlooked weapon against the spiritual roots of division: prayer. For those who understand that political polarization is not merely a clash of ideologies but a manifestation of unseen spiritual forces, prayer becomes paramount. Intercessory prayer for leaders, for nations, for the softening of hearts and the opening of minds is a direct engagement in this spiritual battle. We are called to pray for unity, for peace, and for God's divine will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. It is in this posture of humility and faith that we acknowledge God's ultimate sovereignty, trusting that He can bring reconciliation where human effort fails. This spiritual intervention, often silent and unseen, is perhaps the most powerful force for change in our divided world. Though the present may seem overwhelmed by fragmentation, the biblical narrative concludes not with perpetual division, but with the glorious promise of a unified kingdom. Prophets foretold a day when nations would stream to Jerusalem, when peoples from every tribe and tongue would worship the King of Kings in perfect harmony. In the vision of the new creation, there is no longer Jew or Gentile, slave or free, male or female, but all are one in Christ Jesus. It is a future where every tear is wiped away, where love reigns supreme, and where the devastating consequences of division are forever undone. This is God's ultimate plan, an assurance that His will for unity will prevail. It is a vision of profound hope, a testament to a God who, despite humanity's constant fracturing, will ultimately gather all things together in Christ, establishing a kingdom that will truly never be divided against itself. We have journeyed through the biblical revelation of division, from Jesus' potent warning to its ancient roots in Genesis, its catastrophic fulfillment in Israel and empires, and its pervasive manifestation in our world today. The evidence is clear. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. But the story does not end in despair. It pivots to a call for restoration. Now the choice falls to us. Will we passively observe the accelerating fragmentation, or will we actively participate in God's counter-narrative of unity? Do you believe Jesus' warning is unfolding today, right before your eyes? What steps will you take in your own life and community to bridge the divides? Leave your thoughts in the comment box below. And if you'd like us to keep exploring how ancient truths illuminate our modern challenges, give this video a thumbs up and share it. This lets us know we should continue uncovering more profound insights unfolding right before our eyes. And if you're ready to dive even deeper, click right now on the video you see on your screen. In these times, understanding is more essential than ever. Blessings.